previously on a S.C.A.L Method podcast. It's just sprinting is so good mentally, and I can imagine. And again, this is why I say it's for all ages. There's a way to do it for all ages, right? So you're not going to sprint the same way. Like if you're 60 years old, you're not going to sprint the same way a 20-year-old would, right? But you could do something at 60 years old still. And the thing about it is like the older you get, the more outside pressures will tell you that you shouldn't do it. And then so there's a limit right there that needs to be shattered and broken through. Good coaches, good trainers, they're honest. They're honest people. They're honest in their dealings. They're honest in their assessments. So what you see is kind of what you get. There's no ulterior motive. Again, they're not trying to puff themselves up. They're not trying to just get you for your money. They are wholly about you and making you better. And in that, they will tell you the truth. They put so much effort into accruing that wealth, and they forget about the producing abundant positive outcomes from that, right? Because the wealth becomes a resource, right? So all you're doing is gathering it up. But if you're just keeping it to you or spending it on you, you're missing a point, right? So the whole point here for me concerning that parable, concerning the talents, is not to just gather money. The whole point is not to gather wealth. It's to gather positive outcomes. And the only way you can gather those positive outcomes is if it has some form of multiplicative characteristic about it. And the only way you can do that is if these positive outcomes are actually produced in others. That's the driving force here. All right, here we go. Episode 17. I'm excited about this one. Episode 17, a strong and healthy body. All right, this is part 3 of the S.C.A.L method here. And we're getting towards completing the entirety of the S.C.A.L method. I'm super excited about this one. We talk often about the benefits of having a strong and healthy body, but there are so many places where that idea, that notion kind of interplays with everything else, with all the other parts of your being. We're going to talk about all that. But before I really get into it, I don't know. So as of this recording, TikTok is not banned, but I hear a whole bunch of stuff. I see a bunch of stuff. So it's supposed to be really, really soon. This ban is supposed to be handed out. Now, I have a few thoughts on that, right? I don't fully understand the ban. I understand, I guess, the perspective of it being a security issue, blah, blah, blah. I fully understand that in terms of the data transfer. Some data might be going overseas, whatever. Okay, fine. But then there's also this part where I'm kind of just like, something just smells really, really fishy about this one. Now, I'm not the biggest conspiracy theorist. I hear some of those theories and all that fun stuff, but it's just something doesn't seem right about this one in particular, right? Now, that's not to say that, TikTok hasn't had an influence on a generation of people, right? But so has Facebook. And nobody was talking about shutting that down, right? So there's some, I don't know. I'm sure I'm missing some nuance in all this, but I don't like it. I don't think that's a great idea to completely shut it down. Now, if somebody was going to, buy it and now make it an American company, that's okay. That's a thing, right? But something doesn't seem right about this whole TikTok ban situation. Like, we're flat out, full stop, banning a whole social media platform, which happens to be the one that a lot of people seem to really get with, because there's no what do I want to say? I got to choose my words a little carefully here. But there's little oversight in terms of, I mean, it's an interest-based algorithm that actually funnels your way stuff that you're actually interested in, and doesn't try and push all these random agendas or try and cover up or try and be some arbiter of some version of the truth that ends up being a lie. I mean, I could go on with that one. I won't. But I can't help but feel that there's something else at play here. And of course, I'm saying this also for somewhat selfish reasons, because I just started to pick up the pace on TikTok. And I mean, I'm years late, but I got out there. Everybody was showing me some love. And now they're getting rid of it. It just, that one doesn't sit right with me. And from what I understand, it doesn't sit right with a lot of people. So that's all I'll say about that. But what's going on, everybody? Hope you're doing well out there. I'm Coach Evan. This is Say Cheese and Lift Studio, and you're listening to the S.C.A.L Method Podcast, your one-stop shop for not only physical fitness, but mental fitness, emotional fitness, and spiritual fitness. Let's get to this episode. We got some stuff to go through. All right, time to get warmed up. Let's get it. All right, so person A, we'll name him Rich. Rich is just getting off of work. And he's getting off of work, and he looks on his phone. He's checking out, because he's in the week 6 of a 12-week program. And he looks on his workout log on his phone, and he's just like, it's leg day today. And then he gives it a gas face, like, and he doesn't feel like doing it. He doesn't feel motivated at all whatsoever. So Rich he gets in the car after work. It was like he has a lot on his mind. Work was terrible. So he just goes straight home. And he's just like, whatever. Sits on the couch, turns on Marvel Rivals, and starts getting busy. Right? But the multiverse version of Rich gets out of work, and he calls his homeboy, we'll name him Steve. All right? So he calls Steve up. And basically, Steve is the hype man, right? So Steve is basically Rich's spliff star to his Buster, right? So he's he's the hype man of all hype men, right? So Steve picks up the phone and was like, "What's up?" Rich is like, "Hey man, look, I'm probably not gonna make it today." Steve doesn't even let him finish what he's saying. He's just like, "Bro, what are we doing? First of all, I'm already in the gym. PRs don't break themselves. Man up, let's go." Then Steve, you could hear it all in the background and everything like that. So then Steve he's already there. He's already crushing it. So what Rich does then, he drives, and look, the gym's on the way home. Drives, goes to the gym, links up with Steve, and they both lift out of their mind. And although they can't walk afterwards, they leave feeling motivated and feeling like they accomplished something. Rich then goes back home after that, pops open a protein shake, sits on the couch, and then plays Marvel Rivals. But after, and only after, accomplishing something. What am I saying here? There's value in grabbing a workout buddy. There is value in calling your homie up and saying, "Hey, look, let's lock in." There's value in calling your girl and going, hey, are you going to be there? Because I'm going to be there. There's value in the workout buddy. Okay? And there are huge benefits to grabbing a friend and working out. So getting that workout buddy improves performance. And even outside of that, it strengthens the bond between you and said workout buddy, right? That's another one. It multiplies the stress reduction. It increases motivation and increases adherence to a particular program. So let's just say like Rich and Steve, they're doing this program together. They're doing this 12-week program together. There is a greater likelihood that Rich and Steve are going to complete that 12-week program because they're doing it together, right? So those are the main benefits, and there's plenty more, of grabbing a workout buddy. And see, the thing is, friends in general play a big portion in a healthy person's life, right? There are so many benefits that have actually been studied, right? Like there are a whole bunch of studies to support this as well, that having friends is good for you. Not having friends, not so great for you. And so friendship in general, socializing in general, can help you stave off a lot of these negative effects of stuff, right? So, typically people who have friends and who have close friends or somebody close that they whether that be family, friends, whatever, but they have somebody that's close, they typically have better health markers. So think about it this way. So much so that, remember back in the day when they did those studies initially talking about and the whole thing came out, it was like, hey, a glass of wine a day is really good for your heart. And then, years down the line, it was just like, wait, but, and even more studies are coming out now, but alcohol is not really that good for you in any amount. So then people are trying to balance out the two. The thing is, what these initial studies back then, what they didn't account for is the friend factor. A lot of people drink socially, right? And it's hard to quantify that. I get it, but still, that has a big role, and I don't think that was counted in any of those studies. So they just assume that the chemicals and the compounds that are in red wine are so beneficial to you that it causes all of this stuff. There's a really good chance that those chemicals and those compounds aren't really they're not telling the entire story here. So they're missing the part about the friendship. They're missing the part about the socialization. They're missing the part about people are having fun with each other, and they just so happen to be drinking red wine. You know what I mean? So it's like, so there's a factor there. There's a small nuanced portion of that we definitely should start counting, and it's just the benefits of friends, the benefits of friendship. Right? The benefits of not being alone. You know what I mean? But let me get back. Let me get back here, right? So let's go over each of those reasons though, right? And one of them I didn't mention that's popping up now is you may have more fun doing it, right? Now remember, a handful of episodes back, I was telling you about the benefits to actually having fun. Right? Why adults should go out and have fun, do fun things, and find out what your play personality is. You remember all that stuff? If you don't, I advise you to go back to that episode and listen to that. It was opening up that episode, right? But there's value in playing. There's value in friendship. There's value in playing. And if you play with friends, you're right. And it sounds so kiddie. It sounds so simple, but I think. And it's just from a more of a philosophical perspective. I think we tend to get caught up in adulting too much. We tend to get caught up in all of the woes of being an adult that we kind of forget how to do the fun things that we naturally did when we were younger, right? So there's so many things, and there's so many instances. It's not even just with this, having fun or playing or anything like that, but there's some for some reason we get into adulthood and we have to turn off all these other things because it's not seen as like being an adult or whatever. I don't even have my thumb really placed on that one too well, but there's a big difference between the adults who know how to have fun and the adults who do have fun and the ones who don't. And it's like, and I mean, even when it comes down to health markers. So it's a benefit for you to find some friends to work out with, find some friends to have fun with, So that's one part, right? That big part, I would say, or rather, maybe not a big part, but an underestimated part, right? It has something to do with your health overall, right? So let's talk about the stress reduction portion here, right? So if you're having fun, you're obviously not stressed, right? Your body releases all those endorphins and all that feel-good hormones and all that fun stuff, right? We talked about that quite a bit already, so I don't need to, tread that ground anymore. But another big part of that is really the adherence, or the motivation and the adherence, right? When I just told you the story about about Rich and Steve, right? Rich was not at all motivated to do anything. Steve hyped him up, right? you need that hype man every now and again, though, right? But Steve hyped him up, basically gave him that motivation boost, right? There's a big benefit there. It's a big benefit. And it makes it more likely for you to actually complete the workout and continue on with the working out, right? Completing that program. So I always suggest people, like, hey, look, if you're going to grab a homie, go on an 8-week program, both of y'all knock it out. Because now you can hold each other accountable, right? Now it's just like, I don't want to go, and let that other person down, right? That plays a part in a lot of people's minds, right? So it makes it more likely for you to complete this program or complete this workout or whatever it may be, right? And oftentimes, for two reasons that I can think of, right? You get you have better performance, right? Both of you will have better performance, typically, right? Whether that's because of the competitive nature that seems to come up every now and again, or because you're just having that much fun, right? Those are the two big driving points that I see typically when people are working out together, right? They draw energy from each other, and they push each other even further, and it's like almost like a confidence boost type thing, right? I see that a lot. And then that's where the allure for group training really is. It's the motivation, but it's the confidence boost, right? It's like you have other people in here, maybe at the same level, maybe not, but you're all kind of cheering each other on. You're all trying to, do the best for yourself, but you're also hoping for the best for everybody else in there. So it's like collectively, you're all trying to raise the level a little bit there. That typically leads to better performance. Now, we already know the competitive part is just like, oh man, my buddy just lifted 225. I know I could do that. You know what? In times past, you might not even try it. But here and now, at this point, where you see your homeboy just lifted 225 for the first time, and you're just like, you know what? I think I could do it too, right? So then you go on there, you lift 225. Why do I think 225? I'm thinking of the bench press, if you don't already know. I don't think I even said that, but I'm thinking about the bench press. Either way, right? It's a motivating factor, right? Now, you also have to be careful, right? Because the competition and the confidence boost and all that fun stuff and all the motivation could sometimes potentially push you into the area of or a high risk area of injury, right? So you also have to make sure that you temper it too. But then there's another benefit to working out with somebody, because a lot of times, especially like if that other person that you're working out with happens to be a personal trainer, right? I mean, there's another benefit to having a personal trainer right there, right? Because your personal trainer oftentimes becomes your friend, right? The friend that you love to cuss out, right? So, there's also an added, potentially, right? It doesn't always work out like this, but there's an added safety net there for you. Like, hopefully your workout buddy isn't going to let you just, push astronomically past what you're actually able to do, right? Maybe incrementally a little bit more. Oh, no, you got that. I've seen you do this. You could do this, right? but not like, I've never seen you even come close to that. Go ahead and try it. Like that doesn't work. That's not good. So, there's that added safety feature with working out with someone, especially like just bare bones. You got somebody to spot you. Now, hopefully they know how to do that. And that's another topic. But still, there's the benefit, right? And then, like the last thing, or I guess this is maybe the first thing I said initially, was it strengthens bonds between people. And those bonds, like, again, I don't want to, I don't think I can overstate how important it is to have that connection to someone else, right? And it doesn't have to be weird or anything like that, but it's just like those bonds are important for your health, right? So that's why, like, when I'm in this area, when I'm in this health and wellness area, right? A lot of things that I talk about tend to deal with relationships, right? Because those are very important in how you end up being, and they show up one way or the other. And I'm going to talk about that even more when I talk about the third part of the S.C.A.L method, right? But it's just the benefit to having someone there and working out with them and forging those bonds. Man, like I wish there was a way to actually measure that. Because if there was, I think more people would really opt for doing that. But a lot of people get it already, so don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that, like, nobody understands this. This isn't new. But man, I just, there are so many benefits to having that buddy right there with you, and y'all just in there, just getting it. Like, it's great. It's great. It's a great thing. So next time you go work out, next time you hit up that, or try a group training session. I have a and I'm not going to go too deep into this one, but I have a weird relationship with group training. And it's only because there has to be a way. Like, I love lifting, but I haven't really seen a good lifting group training setup. And I'm not taking shots or anything like that, but it's just like, yeah, well, like, I go do this, and or we go do, CrossFit or whatever, right? And it's just like, yeah, I don't necessarily think that's the optimal setup there, right? Because just like, weightlifting is definitely a skill. It's a skill that you kind of have to learn and perfect over time. And if you're not really teaching directly in a group training session, then you're missing a lot of what makes weight training beneficial. And hence the reason why a lot of people get hurt when that's not present. So it's a weird thing. It's a weird thing. Now, look, you're going to go do like a spin class or something like that. Great, right? And that's a prime example of, kind of feeding off everybody else's energy, right? Feeding off the instructor's energy, having people around and y'all in there, y'all getting it, right? Perfect example over there. I don't know of any perfect examples when it comes to weightlifting, right? Like, and I could be completely wrong. And I know there's somebody out there who is doing it and doing it well. I don't see that anywhere. So, like I said, I'm not going to go too deep into it. But either way, you go out, call your buddy up, call your girlfriend up, call your homie up, go get them, like, hey, look, we up, let's go, right? Do that, because there's so many benefits to it. And if worse comes worse, if you don't have anybody who's on that same level as you are, who's going out there working out or whatever, go try a group training session, and see, of course, again, you have to be mindful of what you're getting into, of course, but there are benefits to being around people and backtrack, or just go get a personal trainer. Go get a cool personal trainer. And that'll work just as well, right? So go ahead and do that. Let's keep it moving. Are you warmed up? You ready? All right. Let's go. So here we go. Let's get into it. A strong and healthy body. Why is it important? Well, first, what is it? Why is it important? All that fun stuff, right? Now, let's start from the top here, right? This is the third part of the S.C.A.L method, okay? And what the S.C.A.L method is, we're going to go over all of this just one more time, right? What the S.C.A.L method is basically it's a style of training, a method in training, my method of training, of coaching that is concerned with the entirety of your being, okay? So basically, think of it this way. Are you your body, or are you your mind, or are you your heart, or are you your soul? Now, instead of saying or in between each of those sections, what the S.C.A.L method says is basically yes and. So are you your body? Yes, and we are our hearts. Okay. Are you your hearts? Yes, and we are our minds. Okay. Are you your minds? Yes, and we are our souls, right? So what the S.C.A.L method is concerned about is a sound heart, a sound mind, a strong and healthy body, and a strong and healthy soul. All of those combined. So everything concerning this podcast, everything that basically comes from my mouth, every single bit of training is totally locked in on making you better overall. So there'll be tips and things like that for the fitness, for the thinking, for the feeling, for your soul, right? And all of that stuff comes into play because that's important. So we're concerned here with total being fitness, not just total body fitness, right? Total being fitness, okay? So that's the S.C.A.L method. So today we're going to talk about the third part of the S.C.A.L method, which is a strong and healthy body, okay? Now, why is it important, okay? So your body is a physical expression of the balance or lack thereof of the rest of your being. Okay? Worded differently, your physicality is an expression of your thinking, your feeling, and your soul. So that's saying whatever goes on in the other three sections of your being, the three parts of your being, whatever goes on there shows up in your body. It shows up in your physicality. Okay? So at the same time, the very same time, your physical state also affects your mind, your heart, and your spirit or soul. Right? So it's a two-way street, right? It's almost like a forever loop, right? It's like one affects the other, affects the other, affects the other, and it just keeps going. So it's a constant feedback loop, basically, right? Going back and forth between the two. So it's important to have a healthy and strong body because the process in achieving said healthy and strong body improves you in your thinking, your feeling, and in your soul. And I often go back to Proverbs 27, I think 17, which says that as iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. And I lock in on the first part of that verse. As iron sharpens iron. Okay? So like ancient smiths used to use iron hammers to like beat out different iron utensils, right? So it was like one version of iron used to, mold and sharpen other versions of iron. And I think about that often because what it's basically saying is you have a like element sharpening a like element. And I take that to the S.C.A.L method overall, right? So basically what I propose is as iron sharpens iron, so a strong and healthy body sharpens one's mind, heart, and soul. So let's talk about that connection between having a healthy, strong body, and we'll start with your mind. So physiologically, exercise alone, just take exercise by itself, right? The process of strengthening your body, the process of making your body healthy in general, right? Exercise is a big boon to that. But that process alone releases neurotransmitters that boost your mood. It promotes the growth of new neurons and synapses. It promotes brain health in general because it also improves circulation to the brain, right? Increases the brain's ability, and this is a cool one, it increases the brain's ability to adapt and change, which is called neuroplasticity, okay? It also boosts your immunity in general, right, which leads to better health as well. So there are all these physiological benefits to exercise, but to the process of building and or maintaining a physically strong and healthy body, right? But there are also major philosophical benefits, right? There are two main big, I guess, maybe I don't want to say philosophical, but like non-physiological, okay? I'm just trying to, I don't want to overtalk it, but there are two big non-physiological benefits to working on maintaining, building a strong and healthy body. One is endurance, and I talk about that a few episodes back as well, right? More than a handful of episodes back, I talk about the value of endurance. What does it mean to endure? Go check that out as well, right? And there are parallels between your physical endurance and your mental endurance, right? Oftentimes, building up that physical endurance builds up your mental endurance, in that it changes your relationship with pain. So yeah, let's stay there for a quick second, right? The process of building up your body physically, right? It's a process of like, it's working out, it's exercising, right? But it's pushing your limits. It's stepping forward, taking a step in a direction of pain and discomfort in order to be better, because it's better on the other end of that pain and discomfort, right? That's what builds up that endurance. That's what builds up that resilience. You are intentionally, strategically, there's another episode coming into play, stepping into something that's uncomfortable and at times painful in order to be better, right? So it's like it gives you some practice in dealing with the discomfort and pain in other parts of life. Generally speaking, people who work out, especially those who do resistance training, they tend to be more resilient. They built their shoulders to handle a little bit more. A little bit more weight, a little bit more. But that's not just weight physically, because yes, they built their shoulders up to build more or to handle more weight physically, but that's also metaphorically. They built their shoulders to handle more weight. That's and that's probably one of the most common trends I see, where it's like I can tell somebody who doesn't really, like, without seeing them, eyes closed, just listening to them speak, I could tell if they work out or not, and I could tell how hard they push it. I think you could too, right? Because just people who work out in that way, who train in that way, they move differently. And I mean, obviously they do, but they metaphorically move differently. They speak differently. They at times will invite pain because they know it makes them better on the back end, and they're all with it. They're ready for it, right? just notice the way some people talk sometimes. You'll be able to tell. You'll be able to tell because, I mean, at least to me, it comes through clear. I can tell if you work out or not. I can tell if you push it or not, you know, because so much of that translates into how you handle life situations, okay? Now, the next big non-physiological benefit comes by the way of discipline, okay? Discipline is a practice of training to follow rules, guides, or a code of behavior. It requires that one keep self-control, stays focused on targets, and applies constant effort. Now, working out, exercising, the process of building your body to be stronger and healthier overall lends itself to you gaining that discipline. And again, whatever you gain on the physical side can be used for all the other parts of your life, right? So that discipline that you gain typically is a tool that could lead to, let's say, a disciplined spirit. So, and it definitely can lead to a disciplined, I'm jumping ahead a little bit here, but it definitely leads to a disciplined mind. It is said that discipline is a muscle. The more you work it, the stronger it gets. So by physically exercising, you're working in discipline, which makes it stronger for when you apply it to the other parts of your life. It becomes easier and it becomes more effective. It almost has I love this word multiplicative, but it has multiplicative benefits for your mind and your heart and your soul, all right? So this connection, though, doesn't only go one way. It goes two ways here, right? Like all these connections go two ways. I mean, go back and forth. Remember that constant feedback loop, right? So oftentimes, what you think shows up in your physical state. Oftentimes, okay? And of course, what you think turns into what you do. Your mind determines your state of being. Now, hold on for 1 second, right? I'm going to pull off on the side a little bit because there's other components here when it comes to that. So your mind determines your state of being. Your body is a reflection of your thinking. But not just your thinking, is also a reflection of your feeling, right? Those two are really, your thinking and your feeling are interconnected. They're tied closely together. Your body's a reflection of your thinking and your feeling, right? And just for posterity and just for completion, your heart determines what you do. And your soul is the core of who you are. It's the glue that keeps you together. It's the glue that keeps you, like your soul is, right? So it's basically the only unchanging part of you. It's the only eternal portion of you, okay? But that's the soul. I just had to complete that because I couldn't leave that hanging. Just my mind won't let it happen. So, all right. So let's talk about what's the link between having a strong body and a sound heart, or worded differently. What is the link between physical fitness and emotional fitness? So we already know that when you train your emotional self, you train your thinking self, right? Remember, it's the emotional intelligence. It's the being aware of how your thoughts and feelings interplay that gets you to a solid emotional base, so to speak, right? So it's fair to say that all the benefits your mind gets from physical fitness and physical health, your heart, metaphorically, does as well. And oftentimes, well, metaphorically and physically, but and oftentimes how you feel shows up in your body. Your feelings can change what you do, but even deeper than that, your feelings can change how your body works. And that's the kicker, right? So, you don't need to look any further than a depressed person and the health issues that arise just simply from that, right? So, I don't know. Well, I know why, but angry people typically have shorter lives. Depressed folk often fall prey to chronic sickness and disease, whether that's through lack of activity or by an actual hormonal change internally. Check out the link between like your emotions and how you're feeling in like irritable bowel syndrome, right? IBS, and the umbrella of all of those gastric conditions, gastrointestinal conditions. There are some pretty strong links between one's emotional state and their intestinal state. Let's put it that way, right? And there's even more studies coming out, showing that link too. And now, not all of them show like actual causation or anything like that, but there are some strong links between a lot of these, gastrointestinal conditions and anxiety and depression. On the other end, I noticed that generally happy people tend to reach their health and fitness goals, right? And again, loosely speaking here, it usually doesn't work the other way around, right? So like I've had a lot of people say that, well, yeah, I'll be happy when I reach A, B, or C, right? But then it's just like, it was almost a self-defeating thing before you can even get to it. And what I found that the most people who had the most success with reaching their goals, at least in this industry, in this realm, right, is like they're already good. They're good. They're already happy, right? And they don't depend on the end result of something that is not guaranteed at all to make them happy. So it's just very like I tend to look at them with like kind of a scrutinizing look, like that means there's more to work on in the background than just getting you healthy and fit, right? So, you're and the thing about it is like your emotional state can help you or hurt you, point blank, right? It's either going to amplify your physical efforts or completely, totally, and utterly work against them. So it's just like, and it decreases the likelihood of you ever reaching those goals in the first place. So it's just like I can't. I tend to just kind of like, are you sure about that? Like you'll be happy when, so on and so forth. Like it just doesn't work out that well, at least as far as what I've seen. It doesn't work out that well that way. So right now we talked about, and as far as this section goes, we talked about how your physical state, your physicality, having a healthy and strong body affects your mind, how it affects your heart, and how your mind and your heart affects your physical state, right? We got that knocked out. So we're going to get to, so I saved the last section because there are a lot of different workings in terms of how having a healthy and strong body leads to and why it's important for having a healthy and strong soul. Okay? So we're going to close out here, take a quick break, and then we're going to jump up right over to the next section here. All right? All right. Good job. Good job. All right. We're going to bring it down a little bit. All right? Let's cool down. All right, cool. So here we go. This is what we have, right? The last little section of the significance of having a healthy and strong body. We want to talk about how having a healthy and strong body interplays with your soul. What does that mean for your soul? And I wanted to separate this out into a complete section here because I have a lot of thoughts on this one. And it's just, and of course I'm going to bring in some biblical references. But it's important to have, and I would even say it's just important. It is mission critical to have that strong and healthy body for your soul, right? And it's like, why is it important, right? And I'm gonna go over three main topics, three main ideas, I guess, with an additional maybe one more, because now I'm thinking about it a little bit. I mentioned it earlier as well. So it's important. It's mission critical because of temple ownership, good stewardship, service. And then with a little caveat on the side, and maybe that's good stewardship. I don't know where that would fall under, but then that discipline that I spoke of earlier, very important in this instance too. So having a physically strong, and actually that's where I'll start. So having a physically strong and healthy body, it benefits your soul in a way of just that discipline. So you're building up in your actions and what you're doing, that discipline, that process, that code of behaving, right? That process is almost a 1-for-1 for your soul. So it's just like, I'll give you a silly example. You're scheduled to work out 3 times, lifting 3 times this week. And let's just say you do one, and it's like, and I don't feel like doing the other 2, you skip out on it. That branches off into other parts of your life, because who's to say, and nobody would really buy it if you say like, yeah, you know what, I'm not really that disciplined when it comes to my body, but I'm disciplined when it comes to my praying. Or I'm not really that disciplined when it comes to, staying moving and staying on top of things, but I'm disciplined when it comes to my reading. Like, and sometimes there are different cases, right? Because everybody is able to do certain things, different levels of things and all that fun stuff. But if you're not doing everything that you can just to make sure that you're able to do one of those things, like especially when it comes to service or be a good steward, right? There's a gap there. There's something missing there. In fact, it's like one of those things that it's strange. It seems to me, and I'm not saying this is indicative of the whole, but I'm just looking around and observing. It seems to me that there's a significant downplaying of the role that your physicality has in maintaining a strong and healthy and disciplined spirit, right? Like it's weird. Like, and even a downplaying of the process that is required to like achieve that, right? So it's like, and again, it's probably just like my sight. I mean, I'm only seeing, a certain view, right? I can't see the entire picture because I can't see everything at the same time. But it just looks like there's a growing number of Christians who are just not at all. You know what? Maybe it's a generational thing. Because I actually see a lot of younger Christians really into their health and really, understanding that that's important and it's an important component to their lives. Like, I see a lot of Gen Zers that way. Now, granted, if you're talking about numbers, there really ain't that many Gen Z Christians comparatively to like, millennial Christians or boomers who are Christians, right? It seems like there's a steady decline in younger folk, going to Christianity. But that's another story. It's just interesting that And I could be wrong again, but it just seems like there's fewer Christians worried about having a strong and healthy body, and they seem to be almost overly spiritual, right? So, take that for what it is. But anyway, let's get started on this here, right? So it's important to have a physically strong and healthy body to basically support this idea of temple ownership, okay? Now, we're going to start with a Bible verse. I'm reading out the King James Version once again. We're going to go to 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verses 19 through 20, okay? And that says, "What? Know ye not that your body is the temple of the Holy Ghost, which is in you, which ye have of God, and ye are not your own? For ye are bought with a price. Therefore glorify God in your body and in your spirit, which are God's." Okay? And basically that's just saying our bodies are temples or places where God is. Okay? Now, by taking care of our bodies, one is respecting and honoring the divine in us. Okay, that's important here because there are a few things to note about the temples, right? So if our body's a temple, we house the divine in our bodies. What's the significance of these temples, right? So there are a few things to note about the temples. The temple, in general, is where God and humanity overlaps. Okay, and I think there was like three main temples, right? So there was the temple with the children of Israel, with the tabernacle, and then Solomon built the temple, and I think Herod refurbished the temple, that same temple, and then we became the temple, right? So, and that's only after Christ's sacrifice, right? So we get there. It represents central places of worship, and it has like symbols of God's presence and focal points of religious life. The temple was considered to be God's earthly dwelling place. Okay, now again, we're taking all this, and there's more to this, right? I'll just jump right to it. So each temple was carefully and meticulously crafted and decorated. Wait a minute. What? Right? So basically what they're saying, the decorations and the crafting of it. So there's a point to all of this, right? They reflected God's glory. The beauty of the temples was a physical manifestation of God's glory and holiness, right? So decorating the temples was a form of obedience and worship. And what is that all, So I'm going to pause there real quick, right? Again, you have all of these temples with very specific directions as to how to build them, how to craft them, and to a point where every temple that was built, basically there was a team of the most skilled and talented people working on it, right? So the most skilled artisans, the most skilled in different cloths and different metals and different things like that. And the temple that Solomon built had a whole bunch of gold and artwork and different things. It was majestic to look at, right? So then we have these temples that were all carefully, finely crafted and decorated to show God's glory. And then we have a period in time where the actual building temples were gone, and we became the temple. Are we not expertly crafted and made? Yes. Are we finely decorated? What does that mean? So that's the thing, right? And yeah, I might get flamed for this one a little bit, but I've run into, me personally, I've run into more issues with Christians talking about, well, especially when it comes to resistance training and you're trying to build the muscle. And I told you this before, way early on. I love the art of bodybuilding because I do see it as an art. I feel like we are so meticulously and carefully crafted and made, and to be able to move in a particular way, and just the muscles and the way they overlap and the way they connect and how they connect to bone, that is, for me, that's amazing. I've always loved it. And so I love the art form of bodybuilding, whereas a lot of other people, obviously a lot of Christians, will see like, oh man, well you're showing this, you're showing that, and it's just like, yeah, it is what it is, right? But it's just like, I'm not saying go out and get tattoos or anything like that. I'm not talking about that decoration. Although I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but it's just, I'm not talking about that specifically. But I'm talking about, like, if this is the temple that houses the divine, why are you not taking care of it? And why wouldn't you want to build it up to being strong and healthy and, you know what I mean? Like, that doesn't, so it's just like, I never got that argument that I only really get from fellow Christians. Is where it's like, well, they don't devote as much time to it, and then it becomes so here's the downside to this, though, right? And there's the opposite in it. And I'm just going to, stay here for a little bit more, and then we'll keep it pushing. But it's like, the downside is when building up your body, when building up the temple, you run the risk of, and this is actually what they did back then too, right? Of basically worshiping the building itself and completely forgetting about God. Here, it is a great risk because we are the temple now. We run the risk of worshiping ourselves. And of course, that's a big no-no, right? So you have to be careful, very, very careful. But just because you have to be careful doesn't mean that that's something that you stay away from altogether. Again, each temple was finely crafted and decorated, right? So, you ought to look good. that's what I'm just like, and it's like, and I know what territory that gets into. It's like, well, what's your definition of good? And it's like, hey, look, let me put it to you this way. There were a bunch of different kings who did evil in the sight of the Lord, who ate whatever they wanted, and it wasn't good for them. They did whatever they wanted, and they did it in excess, right? It did it too much. They weren't necessarily fit people, right? So don't hear what I'm not saying. Like, I'm not saying that, well, if you're a little bit on a larger side, you're a sinner, or you're sinning, or you're terrible, or you're not a Christian. I'm not saying anything like that. I'm just saying be mindful of these things. Be mindful of how you come at the opposite, right? Because it's just like, just because a person isn't dedicating themselves, let's just say they work out every day. Just because a person is dedicating themselves to working out every day, to finally crafting and finally building up and decorating their body, just because they're doing that doesn't mean that they're not praying or not reading or not doing other things. So it's just like, they might have a different balance than you. Right? So, more so I'm saying, ease up off the judgmental stuff. Right? But let's get back to the point here, right? Because I know I feel myself going off on a tangent, but let's get back to the point here. You want a physically strong and healthy body because your physical body houses the divine. If we are to view our bodies as a temple, It calls us to a higher standard. Okay, it calls us to a higher standard of living, period, right? But it calls us to a higher standard of care and respect for our physical well-being. Now, next up, we have good stewardship. Now, we talked about stewardship at least 3 episodes, right? We talked about the parable of the talents. Talked about when I did the man show, all those, months ago. Oof, wow. All those months ago, we were talking about the idea of tending to the garden, to tend and to keep, right? The garden, right? Work, to labor, but to be good stewards of is to rule and to reign, right? Being good stewards of something means you're utilizing the resources properly. You're promoting things to grow. You're promoting positive outcomes abundantly, maximally, right? So we come up on this idea again here because we are to be good stewards of our bodies, right? God has entrusted us with our bodies. Caring for our physical well-being is a part of the assignment that God has given us, right? That's everyone's assignment, right? If we are temples here, it is our assignment to take care of the temple, to take care of that part that houses God. And lastly, this idea of like having a physically strong and healthy body aids us in our service, okay? And for me personally, again, that's a very important idea. That's a very important notion. It allows you or allows one to serve others better and more consistently. Okay? There are so many caveats, maybe not caveats. There's so many nuances to this. I'm just going to maybe touch on a couple, right? But we could go on for days with this particular part of the topic, right? But it allows us to serve better and more consistently, right? And we already know from a physical perspective, you could stave off a whole bunch of physical issues, conditions, diseases, what have you, right? So taking care of your physical body helps you stave off disease and conditions, right? Which in turn allows you to serve better longer, right? Because look, if you don't take care of your body breaks down sooner than it should. And if it breaks down sooner than you should, then that's cutting out the amount of time that you have to actually be able to serve. And I mean, think about it, right? Even with conditions that are a little bit more chronic or a little bit more serious, exercise can help with those symptoms. Keeping like exercise, nutrition, all that fun stuff, physically taking care of your body, taking care of your physical form can stave off those symptoms, allowing you to continue to serve, right? It's like I tend to make this comparison, right? 4 hours in a hospital bed is either going to simply get you to survive or get back to base level. 4 hours of exercise adds time to your life. Right? Now, and again, I get it. There are a lot of things going on out there, and not everybody is going to be able to do, this, that, and a third. Again, I said this before. The majority of people can do something, right? And it's just like, do what you can. Because again, there are still the mental benefits. There are still the emotional benefits, right? But there's that discipline that gets built in when you're doing what you can, especially if you have some chronic condition. If you have some chronic condition, but you still find a way, you become disciplined enough and you keep lining up to get these workouts in, even though it's super uncomfortable. If you could do that in a safe manner, of course, right? But if it's super uncomfortable, you're building up that resilience. You're building up that endurance so that you can continue on further for longer and serve better. right? Because then that becomes your witness, right? I said I was only going to touch on a few of the nuances there, right? But not only that, like, well, I guess I need to touch on that witness part, right? So having a physically strong and healthy body allows you to serve for a longer period of time, right? But it also allows you to serve better in general, right? Because you're not all locked up with sickness or anything like that, or various conditions, or you have a flare up here, you're out for a week, right? You have a flare up there, and some things are tough to deal with. Some things are very tough to deal with. But sometimes the exercise, the working on the physical portion of your body, it allows you time. Whereas if you did nothing, you would have no time, right? So for instance, let's just say you have a chronic disease. You pick it, right? And you actively want to serve, you actively want to help people, but you can't because you're dealing with these symptoms. Just getting a simple program together, doing some exercise, eating right, taking care of your physical body, doing all the things that you could possibly do to make sure that your physical body is okay, might only allow you one day out of the month. But that one day out of the month is better than no days out of the month, right? So it's just like, no matter what level you are in terms of your physicality, that's not the important part. The important part is not the level. It's the effort. It's the discipline, right? That branches over into everything else. So having that and look, let's keep it completely reality based here, right? Like having a physically strong and healthy body also allows you to actively serve better as well. It's like, hey, look, church members moving somewhere. All right, you be the guy or you be the lady that's lifting stuff, right? You got to be able to do that stuff. Like sometimes certain things call for your actual physicality. So that it helps you in that respect as well, right? So I wanted this to be a completely separate section because that is your physicality is important to your spirituality. And at no point should we discount that. We should not discount that connection. Okay? All right, folks, there you have it. I think that was pretty nice, tight episode, but I'm super excited for you to hear this and to get this out to you all. Third part of the S.C.A.L method. It's just, and we're headed into the last part. So once we get through the final part of the S.C.A.L method, I have this idea that's been brewing in my head for a little bit, and I'm gonna put it out there and just see what y'all want to do with it, if anything at all. But I think it can be really helpful and beneficial to a lot of you out there. So we'll I guess cross that bridge when we get there, right? But there are a lot of plans with this podcast coming up, especially for this year, right? So we're going to eventually start to have some guests on, and we're going to have some sit-down conversations. We're going to talk through some things, and I think that's going to be a big benefit to you all as well. But in the meantime, I'm gonna make my escape, because I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little hungry right now. So I need to get something to eat. And listen, in the meantime, y'all be well. Y'all keep it tight, stay safe, because things are getting crazier out there. And hopefully, by the time we meet up again, TikTok's not banned. But anyway, I'm Coach Evan. This is Say Cheese and Live Studio, and you just got finished listening to the S.C.A.L Method Podcast, your one-stop shop for not only physical fitness, but mental fitness, emotional fitness, and spiritual fitness. All right, we'll see you on the next one. Y'all take care.